Okay, James, I've been through your project now and I've filled out this sheet which I've also sent you, and I just wanted to give you a quick talk through why I've said what I've said. So we're clear, I think overall I can assess your project as being fully complex. There's a little bit that worries a smidge about the way you've handled the algorithm and the fact the vast majority of your system is just data in, data out. But that said, it's a non-trivial problem, and you've done what you needed to do with the MySQL. So there are a couple of little things that need tidying up though. So let's do that. For the investigation analysis, you've done some good work. I think it is a comprehensive investigation. I am just a bit worried that this set of objectives isn't, well, one, it's in the wrong place, but I'm a bit worried that it's not quite comprehensive for a fully complex system. Just worries me a smidge. But it is what it is. I guess you could look to see how you could change your objectives, or perhaps flesh them out just to make them a little bit more obvious. But everything else is pretty much there. The only thing I think I mentioned in design actually is that normalization is a bit dodge, as in missing. But I really, you must put those objectives at the end of the system, end of the analysis with your users' needs. It's in the wrong place. The feasibility of potential solutions is dotted about. I think it's okay, but at the moment it's pretty much in the section that you've put, it's pretty much just focused on what technology you're going to develop with, rather than the different ways of solving the problem. Now in your algorithm design, you mention it a little bit, which is nice, but you haven't really talked about, should I use a server-side database, or should I use a local database, or should I use a flat file store, something like that. All three are feasible for your system, and I think you need to sort of lay it on a plate why you've gone for a server-side database. So you need to do that. Now moving on, I've nominally, and it is really nominally, James, I've offered your investigation 10. That's a bit generous actually, if I'm going to be honest. I think it would be a 10 once you've tidied up what I've said. I think it might just be top end of the second band. It's 9 or 10. It's 9 or 10, James. Well, let's move on to design. So I've mentioned about the normalization, and whenever you refer to your MySQL later on, you need to relay it on a plate that you've done this because it needs to be able to access from several machines all over the world, or at least all over Milford or whatever, not Milford, Elsted. Your system flows are okay. This is a slightly unconventional way of showing a loop, and it really does look like you just got a linear system with some simple single loops, even though I know later on there is some nested loops. Effectively, you need to add some pseudocode or some detailed algorithm design for your actual algorithm. Pretty much everything's good. I might even pause this while I skim over some of this. Your object is fine, but there's no evidence of this later on. So I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But that's good, that's fine. that's fine. Good DDL and SQL. We've got some joins. Obviously there's more SQL statements later on. Good regex, contributes to the... Oh, this is a little bit of blurb about your algorithm design. I think you should add to this. I think that's still a little bit light. And you do desperately need to normalise your database. Right. So, again, nominally I've said 10. It's 9 or 10, really. And in fact, that's very generous without normalisation. It's 8 or 9, possibly maxing out at 8 if there's no normalisation. So, I'm going to say 8 for now, James, but put the normalisation in there and add a bit of pseudocode for the algorithms. That probably bumps it up to the bottom of the top band. Yep, you got all that there. Let's move this down for testing. Like the testing. Oh, hello. Testing. Like the testing. Not quite sure why I didn't give it full marks. We're not sure why I didn't get it full marks, actually. Testing's good. Must have been something with the tables. Text. I don't know, James. I've nominally given it 7, and I can't think why I haven't given it full marks. Maybe I owe you a mark there. Right. Technical solution. Now this is gleaned from evidence from all over, partly from your testing, partly from your maintenance, partly from your design, partly from your user guide. So I'm just trying to scroll through. You've pretty much provided everything apart from a complete listing. So there's definitely something missing there. Now if I'm going to be honest, James, there's no real evidence that you've implemented this in an object-oriented manner. Overall, it's very competently done. I think it's a really good system. In terms of the complexity, it's a bit linear, and the way you've solved the bin packing style problem is quite brute force, and it's not evidenced brilliantly. If I could see a bit more evidence of object-orientedness, and if the maintenance or testing just sort of screamed a little bit more at me at the complexity of the algorithms used, then I think we could up this for the technical solution. I've tried to stay fairly conservative with it, but I'm only at 15, which is a respectable mark for this, but I think with a little bit of extra evidence. So you've seen that maybe adding 2 or 3 things might impact on 2 or 3 sections equally. What I would say is it's worth you doing some cross-referencing in your maintenance section, which I've mentioned here. Back to design, back to testing, back to... You don't need to redo it all, but just do some cross-referencing and saying, oh, see this, see that, see the other. And I do desperately need to see some algorithms, which of course you could just put in once and then cross-reference across. And I really need to see your full code dump, and ideally I'd like to see the coded classes so that they're a little bit clearer, because it looks quite structured at the moment. Nothing wrong with that, just not as worthy of the really high marks. Got some good SQL statements there, which is nice, and there's some hints of OOP in here, but nothing concrete. It could just all have been done by structures. Now, because without that cross-referencing, I've hit you quite hard on the systems maintenance. It's only out of, what's it out of? It's only out of 7, but still, I've knocked it down to 4. So, oh come on. So the technical solution, I've said 15, and the maintenance out of 4. So I think you've definitely got a couple of marks, which, if you're doing that, extra evidencing will pop back up there. User manual, really liked that. I think perhaps just a little bit of, I think it would be quite a lot of work to get the extra mark there. Just partly to do with language and formatting, but that's a lot of work for 1 mark. It's all very arguable. I like that a lot. The appraisal, I'm a smidge worried about those objectives and how reasoned and detailed your explanation of the objectives are. But you've hit it one mark by mark, that's fine. Obviously, there's no actual evidence of genuine user feedback, you just blurbed on about it. So, a letterhead or an email or something might be quite useful. Even if it was a little email from the news saying, really valued the discussion. I know you made notes, but if you want any further, just don't hesitate to ask, that sort of thing. Your full and realistic suggestions about the improvements, make sure you respond specifically to the user's feedback before going on to the before you go on to the extensions. So do talk about improvements. So you've been docked a couple of marks there, but nothing major. So what does that actually leave it as, James? Well, let's have a little look at the marks at last year's grade boundaries. I think I've made it if you tally up my marks, you're about 57. So you're 4 marks off an A. I think with a bit of that algorithm evidencing, you should tip this safely into the A, really. I think trying to chase the 1 or 2 marks just to bump up the already high scoring sections isn't worthwhile. I think it's trying to provide that extra evidence for your system, pseudocode for the algorithms, and just checking there's nothing you can do to flesh out those objectives. Those would be my priorities, James, if I was in your situation. Obviously, feel free to ask questions. You've done absolutely amazingly. I'm, really impressed. This is one of the best we've got so far this year, and I've got no doubt that you'll be able to up this to an A grade project. Really well done, James, and I look forward to having the amended version next week.